Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. Mashallah, this is a very nice gathering. We are having a young male youth gathering here with Dr. Khalid Zahir. I am today's host. My name is Sean Sheikh. I'm the vice chair of the board of directors at Al-Mawrid Institute Canada. And today, so we're going to have a session that is going to be focusing on the Quran and Tazkiyah. Dr. Khalid will give us a short lecture on that, and then we'll have an open discussion. But before that, because we have a lot of new faces, some people know each other and some people don't, I would like to pass around the mic and get some short introductions. If you want to skip yourself for any reason that you need to remain anonymous, you can do that. That's fine. But those who want to introduce themselves and want the rest of us to know them, if you just give us your name, maybe, age, education, or profession if you like, and maybe what you're hoping to get out of the session today.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Yaman Amin. I'm an auditor by profession, and I've attended several sessions by Dr. Khalid Saab, and I'm very grateful to Sean Pai for hosting this session. My hope is just to gain knowledge. I'm very interested in especially the classical scholars and the classical methodology of research, and that's why I'm here. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Tamim. First time attending this session. Looking forward to it. That's my introduction.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Osman Yusuf. By profession, I'm a CPA. And I have attended this session a couple of times, and I've really found it very knowledgeable. And inshallah, I will continue to be a part of this in the future.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm Ayan Sayed. I'm a high school student, and I wanted to join in on these discussions because I find it important to constantly learn more about the faith I follow.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm Shoaib. I'm 27 years old. I've studied computer science and have an interest in cognitive science. I've attended a few of these sessions, very beneficial, and I'm looking forward to listen and learn more.
Assalamu alaikum. I am Ayan, and I'm an international student. Currently, I'm studying software development at Sheridan. This is my first time here, so I'm just here to learn. That's all from my side.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm Abdul Sattar. I work in supply chain, and I've attended sessions before by Dr. Khalid. They're very informative, and the main reason for me being here today is just to kind of learn more and learn more about the perspective of Al-Mawrid. So yeah.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm Mohammad Zoeb Siddiqui, and currently my status in Canada is like I am an international student studying information technology and in network engineering. And I'm actually excited about this session since it's my first time, and I got to know Dr. Khalid Zahir Saab is very close to Dr. Israr Rahman Saab, which is like one of the most influencing scholar to me, and I'm hoping for the best.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Malik Faisal. Currently, I'm a student of PhD in religious studies at Wilfrid Laurier University, and I'm also CEO of Al-Mawrid Institute Canada. And I thank you very much, all of you, for coming today.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Mubashir Zaman. I'm an IT manager. I work in IT and project management. And I have been with Faisal Saab and Al-Mawrid for last 1.5 year or 2 years. But this is the first time I'm attending this session. So, yeah.
Hello there, my name is Anas. I've been associated with Al-Mawrid for 2 years now, and I'm very excited to attend this session. I'm very grateful to Sean Bai for inviting me here. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum everyone. My name is Surfraz. So I'm here in Canada for the past 2 years, and it's really excited to join Al-Mawrid. I have seen a lot of faces, new faces, because it's my second time. Also, I got to introduce to Gamli Saab through Anas, and I really like it. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mike Melcher. I'm just here. A friend invited me. I don't really know much about what's going on today, but I'm a new Muslim 2 years ago. I'm on a journey. Allah's been guiding me, and I believe I'm here because Allah made this happen.
MashaAllah. MashaAllah.
We're just doing an introduction. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Bilal. I'm Sean Sheikh's nephew, and I've been on and off coming to these Al-Mawrid events. I found it very interesting and always offering a different perspective. I'm trying to really reconcile things with what I understand from the traditional approach, and I'm looking forward to see what I can learn today, inshallah.
Okay, so we'll try and proceed with Dr. Khalid's dars as soon as possible, but because there's like a few newer people here and some people who have like no clue what Al-Mawrid is or what it stands for. Al-Mawrid as a term is an Arabic word. It means like the place where you go to satisfy your thirst, like a watering place. Basically, this organization is affiliated with a lineage of scholars that started in the Indian subcontinent. Hamiduddin Farahi was the first sort of in that chain. He was around the same time as Shibli Nomani is a figure who is more well known. In the Indian subcontinent, he has a famous, Shibli Nomani has a famous Sira series, set of books. And so, but basically, Hamiduddin Farahi was someone who was sort of more reclusive, less famous, and focused a lot on research, focusing on the Quran and Arabic. And what he ended up doing before he left this world was he had one student. He probably had more, but he had one prominent student whose name is Amin Hassan Islahi. Amin Hassan Islahi is more well known, even though he's probably more well known in the subcontinent. But he had some students that were quite famous. One of them is Dr. Israr. Maulana Madudi was also influenced by Amin Hassan Islahi, and someone who's more prominent in the West is Noman Ali Khan, who also cites Amin Hassan Islahi as well. A lot of the work that Noman Ali Khan does of like surah pairs, and ordering coherence in the Quran, that is a lot of that work was developed. It existed previously in some ways in the tradition, ideas of coherence. I wouldn't want to claim that necessarily there was no work done on coherence, because people have criticized that. But Hamiduddin Farahi really developed this, and Maulana Islahi then completed an entire tafsir, Tadabbur Quran, using that model. And then basically Dr. Khalid Zahir is a student of Amin Hassan Islahi directly, and then also a student of one of his prominent students, Javed Ahmed Ghamdi, whose picture we see here, who originally founded this institute in Pakistan. And then we had country chapters. So there's country chapters in the US, Canada, UK, elsewhere. We sort of function independently. But there's some interesting ideas in this sort of approach to Islam. Not all of them are new, but some of them might have some level of originality, and a lot of it draws on the original, what I would say is the history of the tradition of Islam. But one of the main, there's a few points that I just like to highlight. I think one of the major points is that Deen, the knowledge of Deen comes to us through God and His Messenger, and it's only the Prophet ﷺ who has ultimate authority in religion. So it's not, it's fine that we learn from scholars, but the scholars don't have the same level of authority as the Prophet ﷺ with respect to, making, something that we have to follow in religion. So if a scholar is someone you trust, who you believe, who's giving you knowledge of Quran and Sunnah, that's fine, right? But we don't follow them just because they're a scholar. We follow them because we have trust of them, with respect to giving us knowledge of the Quran and Sunnah. The authority is the Prophet ﷺ. And I mentioned Quran and Sunnah a couple of times because we do believe that the Quran and the Sunnah are the two sources through which we receive knowledge of transmission of the Deen. And there's some further details with respect to that. So we do believe that, first of all, with respect to Sunnah, We believe that there's a distinction between khabre ahad, so solitary narrations, versus that sunnah which has been transmitted by a mutawatir mechanism since the time of the Prophet ﷺ, which means that it was so widely transmitted, practices that are so widely transmitted that to believe that someone could have concocted this and fabricated it it's not rational, it's not reasonable. So to believe that someone just made up the idea of the 5 daily prayers and basically, then people just started following it without realizing that this was never commanded, that's not realistic. Okay, but we differentiate that mutawatir practice that's been transmitted between khabre ahad, which is solitary narrations, which the Prophet ﷺ said to X, said to X, said to X, and then it reached a certain point where it was noted down and people did some research and they were satisfied with the strength of that. That's still not the same level of knowledge. And this type of distinction between these two types of modes of transmission of sunnah is not something that is unique to our way of understanding Islam. It is something that, say, Imam al-Shafi'i himself would have distinguished between something he would call ilm al-amma versus ilm al-khasa, and even within the Hanafi tradition, they would, the terms like naql al-kafa and il-kafa has been used, so basically mass transmission from generation to generation. So we put that sunnah at one level of mutawatir qat'i certain knowledge that is we would say it's the equivalent level of certainty of the Quran because of its mass transmission. But the Quran, of course, is the text that's mass transmitted, and it has a central place with respect to how we understand Islam in our understanding. So the Quran itself describes itself as Mizan, Hakam, and Furqan, right? So it separates between what's right and wrong. It's like a balance to judge things, and it's just there for you to judge all other, sources of knowledge, right? So when we have that, what we say is we have to be very careful that, say, when we're dealing with other historical sources that are not at the same level of reliability, are we taking something that's of lesser reliability and imposing it on what the Quranic text is saying? We don't want to make that mistake. So that's what we're trying to be careful with respect to. And the Quran itself, what we would say is the way to understand the Quran is the way that you understand language. So you have to be mindful of the internal coherence of the text, right? How the text understands itself, as well as you have to be mindful of the classical language of Arabic, right? So those are just a few points. I just want to get that across because there's some people who have absolutely no, connection to this school of thought. And then we'll just move on to, again, the lecture today is, we're moving into a phase where Ramadan is about to start. So we're going to talk about tazkiyah is an important concept in Islam, and it's mentioned in the Quran, and so we want to take a Quranic perspective for that. Just a little bit of background of Dr. Khalid Zahir. Again, he's a student of Amin Hassan Islahi directly, a student of Javed Ahmad Ghamdi. He was also a student of Dr. Asrar Ahmad. And again, these are people who are more known in the subcontinent, but they're quite prominent. In addition to that, he did his PhD in Islamic banking from the University of Wales, and he's an imam at the Muslim Society of Guelph. So thank you very much.
Thank you. How long do you expect me to speak for?
It's up to you.
Oh, that's a...
Too much power corrupts.
No, that's not very helpful. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I begin in the name of the God whose mercy is profound, whose kindness is forever. I will begin my presentation by briefly letting you know about what I have been talking to a young man in his, he's a teenager, who I talk to every other week, fortnightly. He is a born Muslim, but he's disgruntled. He's not interested in Islam. So his parents wanted me to keep talking to him so that it might hopefully bring him somewhat closer to our religion. What I mentioned to him recently, at times it's difficult to break ice, it's difficult to to have a conversation with somebody who has been bored, not interested. So I said to him that, look here, let's agree to this reality that the life that you are so fond of, I'm also fond of it. This life is brief and uncertain. So it's going to come to an end anytime. Is it worth the kind of obsessive love that you have focused on it? So there has to be a meaning to life. It doesn't make sense the way it is if you don't have any understanding, if you don't have a narrative that would explain what this life is about. The other thing that I mentioned was that the understanding of the true meaning of this life that would make sense should be the one that should be applicable to all humans. It should not be meant for a particular group of people, but should be applicable, acceptable to all humans. And we should feel confident about it. And he said, well, what you're saying is making sense. So I said, let's then keep talking about it. I'm not presenting to you what many Muslims believe. I'm just trying to urge you to have an open mind and understand what could be the solution to the puzzle of this life. This life is a puzzle. The way it is, the way we find it, happening, it doesn't make sense. So that's my starting point. Now, what I would say to him in my later discussions is that the message that I believe to be the message of our Creator tells us that whatever He is asking us to do and to believe in aims at one particular objective, and that is tazkiyah. What is it? I'll let you know very shortly. Now, all humans are expected to achieve tazkiyah. And this life is a test. We have all been provided with freedom. We all can make choices. And that is why it's a test. And in this freedom, we have knowledge of what is good from what is evil. Okay, there might be some differences, but by and large, the humanity agrees that there are many things, there are many actions, many decisions which are wrong, unacceptable, morally reprehensible, and there are others which are desirable, so good. I don't want to go into the details of the examples. Telling a lie is bad to all. Speaking the truth is good, acceptable to all. So, in this life of ours, wherein I am somewhat a free agent, wherein I can take decisions on my own, and I know what is right from what is wrong, and yet it's a test because what is wrong is attractive. It gives you immediate dividends. And what is right, although makes sense to you, but it is testing. Sometimes it's difficult. You don't get any immediate rewards, etc. So this is a test according to the book I believe to be the book of Allah, the book of God, for all humanity, all humans. And when you read the book, you obviously ask yourself a question: what purpose is this book serving? When I'm going to understand and practice the teachings of this book, what am I going to be achieving in this life? As I said earlier, it's tazkiyah. Obviously, that's not the complete answer. Most people would say, well, you follow this religion because you want the success of the next life. True, absolutely. This life is temporary, the next life is lasting. You want to earn the pleasure of your Creator. Absolutely. But what exactly would you do here and achieve that is going to cause you to please your Creator and would cause you to achieve success in the next life? The Quran is absolutely clear that it is tazkiyah. What is tazkiyah? Tazkiyah is purification and development, progress, enhancement. Now you might ask, it should be one, not both. Well, I would say they are both so closely interrelated that if you are able to understand what the relationship is, you'll hopefully begin to agree with me. You see, as I said, this life is a trial in that we have been given freedom and we know what is right from wrong. What is wrong seems to be many times attractive. What is right is testing, challenging. And we all have been given, all humans have been given a great potential to be excellent human beings. When I say excellent human beings, what I mean is that you can be very good to your fellow humans and you can be very close to your Creator. So there are two different, call them entities that we are dealing with: our Creator, whom we cannot see, and fellow humans. God's religion expects us to be good to fellow humans on the one hand, and to be good to and therefore come close to our Creator on the other. But the trouble is that because this life is a test, that's not trouble, that's great. Because this life is a test, the trouble is that there are within us, our personalities, inhibitions, obstructions, difficulties. Well, essentially there are two. One is our desires, base desires. Well, desire taken in totality are not wrong. Some desires are useful. We can't live without them. But desires, many of them are evil. They're base. And the other is our ego. Now, we have a great potential to grow and become excellent human beings, in that we can be exceptionally good to fellow humans and we can be exceptionally good in our relationship with our Creator. But our inner weaknesses in the form of our desires, evil desires, and our ego, they threaten to deny our potential to be properly realized. God's religion, His message, the details of which were alluded to by our friend Sean, we can talk more about it. But when those teachings are looked into in their totality, they, on the one hand, are aiming at cleansing our soul, our personalities, removing that hurdle of our desires, evil desires, and our ego. And on the other hand, as a consequence of it, enabling us to grow, to become better humans. This is what tazkiyah is. The entire set of teachings of the Almighty's religion aims at it. Whether we are understanding our faith, which is actually the tazkiyah of our knowledge. If your understanding and knowledge is not purified, is not correct, you can't grow. If you are living with an understanding of this world which is mistaken, incorrect, you'll not be able to make progress as is expected of you. So, when we are looking at our belief system and understanding it, appreciating its arguments from the Quran, our knowledge is getting purified. When we are practicing the Almighty's religion, whether in the domain of morality, which is a major part of God's teachings, or whether we are dealing with the domain of Sharia, the law, which is actually a corollary of morality. Some aspects of morality, when they are not clear to us, the Almighty clarifies them through His law. But they are all aimed at achieving one objective, which is tazkiyah, which is, on the one hand, overcoming our weaknesses, whether in the form of desires or ego, and on the other hand, enabling our inner, call it hidden potential, to be realized as best as we can. You read the Quran carefully, and you would find that the Almighty is telling us that His religion aims at enabling humans to achieve tazkiyah. Purification, growth, enhancement, progress. Purification of the soul, and therefore removing the obstacles in the way of our potential, and then realizing that potential. Now, the great thing about this presentation in the Quran is that when you read any part of God's religion, you're understanding the Almighty's religion, its teachings, its arguments, and you're also understanding what are you aiming to achieve. Well, you are aiming to achieve tazkiyah, and through tazkiyah you are aiming to achieve the pleasure of your Creator and ensuring success in the next life. Honestly, it is as simple as that. It is complex when it comes to the details, but the complexity is helped, is facilitated when you look at the goal. I mean, you read the Quran and you would find that there is one verse which has been mentioned 4 times in 4 different passages of the Quran. Anything mentioned in the Quran once is enough for us to believe that it's important. But imagine that the same understanding is repeated 4 times, and it's not repeated the way, for instance, فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا is repeated in Surah Rahman. That too is very important. But what I'm saying is that this understanding, the verse that I am referring to, is spread across in different parts of the Quran. And the message is the same. Allah sent His Messenger Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam with His verses. Yatlu alayhim ayati. He recites before them His verses. And what do? وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ. They do their tazkiyah. And how is it done? وَيُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةِ. The law, the Sharia, and hikmah, beliefs and morality, they are taught. the more you understand them, the more you will achieve tazkiyah, the pleasure of your creator, the success of the next life. Another good thing about understanding this ultimate goal of the Almighty's religion is that if you are following his religion at any level, be it understanding the belief system, be it practicing the rituals, or becoming a good part of the society, you have a very important criterion, gauge, against which you can judge as to whether what you are doing is achieving the objective that the Almighty has set forth for you or not, which is the objective of tazkiyah. I mean, you are saying your prayers, regularly, but your morals are not affected. Well, like your car's engine is not working properly, it's going to wobble. Probably some noise is going to come and let you know that there's something wrong, man. Just attend to it. So it's not happening. So you will work on your prayer to make it more. Did I not promise that this is going to happen? This is the beauty of my presentation. Snoring is going to begin. So it's going to give you an indication that your prayer needs to be corrected. There's something that needs to be done about it. The other question that I raised when I was talking to this young man that I referred to, that it should make sense. And God's message can only make sense if you can show that it applies to everyone. If it applies to a few, well, it's actually a narrative of a few. And you are claiming that the message is the message for the mankind. Now, the objective of tazkiyah that I am talking about is an objective which is properly addressed by God's message. Honestly, it does not need his message desperately for it to be achieved. I mean, humans already know from inside, the way they have been designed by the Almighty, that there's something good and something bad. So they are all in the process of going through their tazkiyah at their own respective levels. He has promised in his book that come the day of judgment, he is going to hold people accountable in accordance with their context limitations. They will not be asked questions which they didn't know, they couldn't have responded to. So a person who achieves tazkiyah, purification, and call it spiritual and moral progress at the level that he could have achieved, given his limitations, is done the job. And the next world, the world of accountability and eternity, will give that person a life whose quality is all going to depend upon how he performed in this world. So, in order for a person who is looking for the truth to feel comfortable that a narrative, a message which is claiming to be from our Creator is actually from Him, it should make sense in a way that your own nature, your own inner self, your intellect they all come together and feel comfortable on the one hand, and you can see that it gets applied to everyone, virtually, literally everyone. Uh, I don't want to say anything negative about anyone, but I just want to emphasize that look here, when you are dealing with a religious message, please critically examine it and find out whether it is doing that trick, it is making sense in the way that your inner self, inner soul feels comfortable, and then you can see that it applies to everyone. You are not left with believing that we are lucky, we have got it, others bad luck, sorry, you didn't get it. So try next time, and there is no next time. So, when you read the Quran, you get this very soothing, comforting understanding that this message is from your Creator. He is fair and just. He is kind, forgiving. But this life, the way it is, He has actually designed it to be a partner of another life. And the two, this life and the next life put together, they form a pair. And the Quran argues, the Quran convinces the reader that God has created everything in pairs. You know why? So that you may ponder and reflect. Ponder and reflect about what? About the fact that if there is a partner for everything that He has created to form a pair, what about this life? This life itself is asking for a partner, because left on its own, as I said at the beginning, it makes no sense. Does it make sense? People come here, they live a life. Honestly, I was just thinking about it before coming here. When a person, a human being, begins to excel in his area, profession, he's called back. I mean, there are brilliant people who, when they reach the climax of their performance, they go, they leave this world. I mean, what's going on? Why? The only answer is, this life was designed by the Almighty to let people know who are living here as decent, intelligent, sensitive people. But this life on its own is incomplete. There has to be another life. That life is going to make sure that the problems, the wars, the tragedies, the injustices of this life are going to be fully taken care of. And what is going to be the criterion against which the Almighty is going to judge the performance of humans? Already said tazkiyah. How well have you purified and kept yourself away from the evils that are there threatening you? And how well have you been able to achieve the goal of being good to fellow humans and to your Creator? And how much are you expected to perform? Or in other words, what is the basic minimum level of performance which is going to be acceptable in the eyes of the Almighty? Well, depends on who you are. Depends on what your limitations are. How much you were endowed with understanding, knowledge, intelligence. How much you were informed. I am sure that there are many questions that still remain unanswered. But you know what? A basic understanding, introduction to this presentation that the Quran does to us, it begins to make sense. You may disagree with me. Honestly, that to me is what faith is. I quite often hear people saying, we have a blind faith. And I don't understand. What do you mean? Anybody can have a blind faith. I mean, my father said so, and therefore it's right. I mean, what do you mean? People have faiths which are blind and they are contradictory. They say God had a son, we say he doesn't have a son, and so on. So, you know what? Let's not fight about it. Let's try to understand. And the last thing, last I said so that I can have water. As I said, it's a universal message. It has to be shared. You know why it has to be shared? There are two reasons. It has to be shared by those with those who have not come to learn about it as yet. Did I say two reasons? Well, there are many reasons. But I said two so that at least I can mention two and you'll not complain. One reason is that the Quran says that it's a message for the entire humankind. How can you feel satisfied that you are doing it yourself and you're not sharing with those who were also a part of the scheme of the Creator? So we have to. We've got no choice. Obviously, as much as we can. The other thing, the other reason why it must be shared with others is that there is another aspect of the Almighty's message which I would just briefly mention. You know, the message, when you listen to it, when you receive it, it would either appeal to you or it would not. Obviously, there are a number of factors. I mean, a person like me, if I am going to make presentation, maybe it would not appeal to people. They would find it more interesting snoring.
I disagree.
No. But if the message is presented properly, as the prophets used to do it, as best as one can imagine, and people are still not accepting. I'm not saying that this is what happens immediately, but over a period of time, I'm telling you, the Quran is absolutely clear that those who are good humans, when I say good, I mean morally good, they will accept the message. And those who have chosen to be evil, they will not accept the message. That is why those who did not accept the message were condemned by the Almighty. Nobody forced them to be evil. They chose to be evil. They had this freedom with them. Everybody has a freedom. So what I'm saying is that, you know, there are, I hope you agree with me, there are many good people around us who don't have this message. Everybody needs it. Everyone needs it. You know, when somebody passes away and I get an opportunity to talk on the occasion, to help the relatives in the bereaved family feel comfortable, I always tell them one thing, and that I promise is the last thing I would say. I tell them that, look here, the Quran mentions it in 3 different passages. If you believe truly and do good deeds, and your parents and your progeny, Allah is going to arrange for all of you to live together in the paradise forever. Wow. I mean, can you imagine? And honestly, I remember on one such occasion when I mentioned it, there was a gentleman who came close to me after my presentation, and he said that he was 50 plus at that time. He said, where are you saying it from? What is your source? And I said, there are 3 different passages in the Quran which mention that. And you know what? He started crying, weeping. He realized, oh my goodness, I'm going to be able to meet my parents again. There's a real hope. You know what I feel is, this hope should be shared with the entire humankind. This is the Almighty's scheme, His plan. You know, I mean, people are depressed. They are frustrated. They are sad. There's so much of pain in this life. There's only one thing that can give them comfort, and that is the Almighty's message. We have got it. We should understand it. We should practice it, and we should share it with others. أقول قولي هذا أستغفر الله لي. أقول قولي هذا means I have said what I have to say, and I seek forgiveness for you and for myself and for all believers.
Jazakallah, Sheikh. We'll open it up for questions. So if anyone wants to dig in on any of those points, we'll try and make it so that you make one question or comment if there's other hands waiting. But if there aren't other people waiting, then you can go on. Who'd like to start?
Assalamu alaikum.
Right.
So like there's this one question I had in my mind when you were speaking about, you know, spreading the message. And the reason why I got this, like I am like thinking about this question for a long time, and I was like finding a right person to ask for about this, and you know, I think I should ask it now. And so like me as an international student, so like I am always interacting with new people of new culture and of different characters. So ever since I was back in India and when I came here, so like I always had a goal of, you know, trying to spread our message as we have got it as a gift from our God, and that is a huge blessing for us. And after realizing that, spreading it to the people who actually are good in character, but they are, you know, like they are not blessed with the same message. And so like the best thing that we can start the communication with, and without, you know, offending their religion or their faith. And you know, of course, like we should approach the people approach the person as per their understanding of the religion and their interest. But still, like I find it very hard to, you know, start the conversation like this. So if you can, you know, wrap it up.
Yeah, I think I'm glad that you've asked this question, because my presentation might have created a wrong impression that I'm asking you people to, after this meeting, go out and start knocking at the doors of others. No, that was not what I intended. What I meant was that we should all have this eagerness that this message has to be put across. Now that you are living in a country, in a society where most people are not introduced to the message, be good with them, be friends with them. And as and when an occasion arises, an opportunity offers itself to you, talk about it. Always talk with this one important principle in mind, which the Quran mentions. Ud'u ila sabili rabbika bil hikmah. Invite towards the path of your Lord with wisdom. Do it wisely. Some people might allow you to speak to them directly in your first meeting. Many would take long time before you would realize that there is some way of talking to them. Let's not hurry. If the intention is there, that's about it. That is what our job is. I keep telling people, letting others know about the Almighty's message is first and foremost His duty. We are just agents. And as His representatives, we will make an attempt. Whether it succeeds or not is His decision. We will try, we will be polite, we will be wise, we will pray to Him to help us out. And every individual is different. And, you know, look out for opportunities and do it wisely. For instance, you can talk about these questions that I mentioned at the beginning of my presentation. A very good way is, I think that's the way we should all adopt as and when we find that somebody is interested, tell them that, look here, this is the book. This is the book we think our Creator sent down for the entire humankind for the last time. And it is fully intact. It is exactly the same way preserved as it was revealed. So just go through it. And if you have any questions, I'm available. I think that's what we should do. If I will make a presentation, I'll have my own, arguments, etc., which may not be quite as effective. So I think that's what our job is, to let people know that their Creator has sent a final message. They should read and make up their own minds.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else?
Assalamu alaikum. I guess Ramadan coming up, how are we able to become closer to God, and how are we able to sort of leverage our time to actually, pray much more and praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? What are some of the things that we can do that is prescribed by Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam?
You see, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam had this practice of preparing believers mentally before the month of Ramadan would begin. So in the month of Shaban, he would tell people about the importance, significance of this month. Because I've seen it that, if you are into Ramadan, the flow of the activities of Ramadan, the current is really strong, and you don't even realize that, it has all begun to happen. And you can't then think of what to do. So I think now is the right time. It's just about a week away. And, there are two things that the Quran mentions very clearly. If the Quran mentions something about some activity, objective, that's the most important thing. One thing the Quran mentions about fasting is that it is meant for inculcating taqwa. Ya ayyuhallazina amanu kutiba alaykumus siyam kama kutiba alal lazina min qablikum la'allakum tattaqun. Believers, fasting has been made obligatory on you the same way as it was made mandatory for the people before you. Why? لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, so that you may become God conscious. And I'll talk more about it. But I want to say one thing more in addition. Allah has mentioned in His book whatever He has mentioned as His expectation from us. He has always mentioned the reason, so that when we are doing something to follow Him, to be obedient to Him, we are also mindful of the purpose. So here the purpose has been clearly mentioned. Fasting is for taqwa. Now, what is taqwa? Well, taqwa is actually being conscious of the fact that Allah knows what we are doing. He's looking at us. He knows our intentions. And one day, we are going to be held accountable. And the other aspect of taqwa is that as a result of this, we remain within limits. Limits of morality, limits of his religious expectations. How does fasting enable us to achieve it? Well, for 29, 30 days from dawn to dusk, you remain hungry and thirsty for the sake of Almighty, even though you have food plenty around you. Why do you stay away from it? Allah has asked us not to benefit from it, right? Now, when you go through this training for a good month, 29, 30 days, then the hope is that later on you will be able to exercise self control and be able to remain within the limits that the Almighty expects from you. It is because of this reason that the Prophet ﷺ said, the one who lies, cheats while fasting, or acts upon lying, God is not interested in him remaining hungry and thirsty. I mean, why is he bothering to fast? When while fasting he is cheating, lying, and doing things which are evil. So the whole purpose is to have taqwa. Now, honestly, I'm telling you, beyond this, it's something that we need to figure out ourselves. We should talk to ourselves, to each other, to find out how, by fasting, we should internalize this message that I have to remain conscious of the presence of my Creator in order for me to be able to remain within limits. That's a challenge. That's one thing. The other thing, briefly, is again the Quran saying that this fasting is done during the month of Ramadan because it is the month of Ramadan in which the Quran was revealed. And the Almighty says, you know what the Quran is? It is the guidance for mankind. And the guidance is not ambiguous. وَبَيِّنَاتٍ مِّنَ الْهُدَى. It is absolutely clear. If you want to read, just read the translation and you would know that what it's saying is clear. Wal Furqan. This is something which I have this complaint that we don't pay heed to. It is Al Furqan. It is the ultimate criterion that distinguishes right from wrong. It tells you what is acceptable in religion and what is not. It tells you what is the right understanding given religious differences. I'm telling you, we don't give it that status. So during the month of Ramadan, let's try to become more and more conscious of the Almighty's presence. And B, let's come close to the Quran, not just by reading it. It's sad. The Muslims, they believe that because the Quran was revealed in this month, let's read it and read it quickly and read it as much as you can. I was telling somebody the other day, probably yesterday, I was mentioning the fact that, you recite the Quran without understanding it and you will read the verse which is saying, Afala yatadabbaruna al-Quran. Do they not ponder and reflect upon the Quran? Am ala qulubin aqfaluha. Are their hearts locked? What's wrong with them? And you are reciting it. So, we have to understand it. We ought to know its message. So I think these are the two things which we must prepare ourselves mentally to be able to achieve as much as we can during the month of Ramadan.
Next.
Assalamu alaikum. So, I mean, my question is not like totally related to the topic we covered today, but it's like, like a bit of a tangent. I mean, I got to know that you were a former student of Dr. Sarah Ahmed, and so I just wanted to know what are your thoughts upon, Iqamat-e-Deen, establishment of Deen. What do you think, like, in the society? How should we go about it? And what do you think Iqamat-e-Deen means?
You see, this expression, Iqamat-e-Deen, is used in Surah Ash-Shura. The Almighty says that He sent messengers and He gave them this clear instruction, An Aqimud-Deen, that you do, let's say, Iqamat-e-Deen, Wala tatafarraqu fi, and do not get divided. Do not get divided into sects, fragments. Now, You know, my understanding now is that in order to understand the Quran, it is important that if you have a certain verse which you want to understand properly, you find other verses which are similar in nature and presentation, and the Quran will never disappoint you. You will find that there are verses and they are giving you another angle, another dimension to understand the particular verse that you trying to understand more. And what we find is that there is at least one verse in the Quran in Surah Al Imran, which is Surah number 3, verse 102. The Almighty says, وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا. In Surah Shura, and أَقِيمُوا الدِّينَ وَلَا تَتَفَرَّقُوا فِيهِ. Here it says, وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا. So, La tafarraqu is the same. An aqimuddin and wa'tasimu bihablillahi jamia is also the same. So the Almighty is actually asking believers that they should stay firm on their religion. And when they'll stay firm on their religion by holding fast to the rope of Allah, the book of Allah, they will not get divided into factions and sects. Now, while we follow the message of the Almighty properly, quite apart from many other expectations, one expectation that we are going to discharge is to let others know about it. And most certainly, sometime an occasion would also come when you might be talking to a ruler or potential rulers or those who influence rulers. If that's going to be the case, well, most certainly you will do as best as you can what is within your limits, what is possible, to tell them that as rulers, you have certain commitments to your Creator, certain expectations from Him for you. So, but to other individuals, and more importantly to yourself, what you will do is that you will say that let's be sincere to the religion, and let's follow it properly, and let's follow it together. That is what I understand Iqamat ad-Din is.
So like one thing like I would like to add, like I mean when we say like deen, like our understanding of deen is like like a madhab, like rituals and things we do like namaz, zakat, those things like a madhab. And but the word deen is more of like the way of life. It encompasses the meaning of the way of life. So it does not only have like the ritualistic aspects, but it also encompasses like the societal aspects, the political system, the economic system. So I mean, if we are to follow the deen, we have to like have a, it's not just about rituals and the madhab, but also about the other aspects of life. That's what a complete way of living life is. And in that sense, if we see of ikamat ad-din, that means like it's not just about like following the commandment, but trying to like at least striving, and at least in having having an intent. They have to strive for the establishment of the system.
You see, when we try to understand God's religion, we make an earnest attempt, and obviously we can fail, and for that purpose, we should keep talking to each other. We try not to allow any external philosophy to be imposed on God's message. Let's understand God's message from within the text instead of being influenced by some philosophies or narratives which people might have been able to develop with good intentions. But as I said in reply to one of the questions, the Quran is the criterion. The Quran should tell us whether it's a mazhab or a deen or what. The Quran tells us about beliefs, it tells us about rituals, and rituals and beliefs are not mean, not small, they're very important. It talks about morality. Yes, it does talk about certain expectations of the Almighty in the economic life. Why? Because He wants us to purify. In economic matters too, He wants this process of purification to be undertaken. In social life as well. Likewise, as I mentioned earlier, for the ruler as well. But to demand from every person that we come together and start a movement where we will actually have a control of a certain country or land, where we will establish the law of the Almighty, it seems to be a political mindset. If somebody wants to do politics, I have no problems. I would encourage the person, but would tell him that, look here, in politics too, let's aim at tazkiyah. Let's aim at purification of our actions, our intentions, and progress of our morality, our contact with the Almighty. So, God's religion is what is mentioned in the Quran and Sunnah. Let's understand it from there. Whenever we come up with an outside philosophy, the danger is that we lose sight of what the Almighty's message itself is saying.
Can I have the? Can you pass it? Yeah, so I mean, unfortunately, it's only a 2-hour session. It'll be over in about 10 minutes, and hopefully there were some nuggets and kernels and things that will be good reminders for all of us and be different types of food for thought for you to reflect on, and some things that you might not necessarily leave here agreeing with every part of it, but maybe inshallah there was khair in some of it that you can take with you and work with. And as we all agree that Ramadan is coming, Ramadan is important. We talked about the importance of tazkiyah. It's very clear in the Quran that this is something that we all have to work on. We got some good advice on that. And then at the end of the day is that our approach is that we have to keep an ongoing dialogue, and it's not about us imposing our particular school of thought on everybody. We're here to learn from everybody, and everyone can benefit from ongoing exchange of information. At the end of the day, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will judge us, and we're all responsible to do the best that we can do with the information and the time that we have. So I think that we have another 9 minutes before I think I would like to start the food at 8 o'clock sharp, if we can.
There are a couple of friends who joined later. I think they can also introduce themselves, and especially Asil. So he wants
Sure,
to
sure.
say something about his.
Sure. So, yeah. So anyone who joined and wasn't able to participate in introductions. So go ahead, brother.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the dialogue. It was really and the message was great. I'm actually from Toronto. I'm an artist from Toronto, and I met Faisal Saab just yesterday, and he was kind enough to invite me out here. So first of all, I'm really impressed by this gathering. This is quite intimate and quite close. I've developed some concepts related to your message tonight, where the general society doesn't really understand Muslims, and so the real conclusion is they do not know. They do not know, and so the thing is that if you don't know something, you can't ask about it. Especially, as you said, if the narrative is corrupt or is skewed, or is one way, or it's very heavy with one type of narrative, then you can't expect people to approach you, right? Like we see a guy in Walmart or something with a beard, and he looks kind of like with a big beard and stuff like that. You might think he's someone from someone dangerous or something, right? Because that stereotype that gets enforced. What I've discovered through my work is um, just by existing, people can consume. For example, I've written a few books, and when people pick up the books, like most of these books are visual. For example, my first book is called Khadija Goes to School. It's about a young girl who goes to school, and she's wearing like higher heels in the book. She's just a little kid, but just platform shoes or something. But people even ask questions like that. What is the hijab on her head? Or, uh, you know, oh, that's, I noticed she's wearing shoes like that. People would make interesting comments just by visualization, by being introduced. The fact that they can see something, they question it, or they can ask questions. So I've really discovered that that is a bridge. You can't always be around all the time. For example, I went to Spain for one of my projects, and the most visited place in Spain is the Alhambra Palace. It's probably number one or number two. And most of the people there are who? They're not even Muslims. But that's a monument that's there, and that's doing its service even long after you've left this world. So I really feel that this is a great conversation, and I think a lot of people might be wondering. I know I'm one of those people that have always wondered, how can we take Islam or what we understand into action? That's the part that the society does not see about us. And a lot of young people are struggling with that as well, because they're like, okay, I understand this great message. As you said, it's an amazing message. People are in pain. But how can you help them? Where's that bridge? So I believe art is a bridge. And so if you don't mind, is it okay if we share one thing online?
Yeah,
Or-
can we do that after?
Okay,
'Cause
no worries.
There's a post-dinner session as well.
Oh, great. Okay, because it's about Ramadan in particular. I have a storytelling platform as well online where the whole world can tell stories about Muslims. We have almost 1,000 stories, and these are many non-Muslims have shared stories about Muslims on here. We're close to London, Ontario, and I'll just leave you with two things. Do you remember the London terror attack? The Pakistani family was run over. We ran a national campaign on this website. We can show you after. It's called Islamophobia.io, by the way, if you want to check it out. Islamophobia.io. But just people that have written heartfelt messages there. So this is an example of a bridge where there's people who I don't even know have written incredible letters to the Afzal family. That's documented. Now, anyone, anytime can go there, even if it happened in 2021, can go there right now and read those messages. That is a bridge. And those are details that the public does not know, but now that it exists, they know. And the same thing, I have a Ramadan storytelling objective on the same platform, just different topics. I have just received Ramadan stories this week, so I please encourage all of you to share Ramadan experience. The public does not know about Ramadan. They just know you wake up in the morning and you hold fast all day. Do they know about the Tahajjud prayer? Do they know about this 27th night? Do they know about Fajr prayer? How many Fajr stories? Everyone has a Fajr story. Even if you missed Fajr once, it's a Fajr story. Everyone has a story, but how many stories of Fajr are in public? This platform does that. And so I've received these kinds of messages where we get into the nuance. That is what creates the appreciation. And so I believe in this work where we can just create outreach in multiple ways, but we need to do that in order to create understanding. I'm happy to share the project with you guys after, but and some other projects as well. Thank you so much.
Great.
Thank you. I just remember from his talk that once I was working with a South Korean company, and there was only one Muslim, and that was myself. And in Ramadan, I just wanted to request some few hours like relaxation because I was traveling from like around 2 hours, and I requested my manager, and he explained it to the GM, and GM called me directly in the office, and he said, why do you want this 2 hours? And I really struggled explaining what Ramadan is, and he never heard this word before that. And then He was quite confused from my explanations. And suddenly my manager entered and he just say one word, I mean one sentence, and he was, oh, okay. And what was that? He just said Malik is gonna skip his lunch this month. That's all.
Ramadan yeah. Falba, you came later as well. So you can give just a brief introduction about yourself and I think one more person.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm Fahad. I'm from India, Aligarh. I came to Canada 2021. I moved with Sean by almost 3 years back, April 2022, when I got a job in Kitchener. So we became like good friends. So I was here for over 2 years. And now recently, when my family came here a few months back, so I moved in Kitchener only near the central station. So we are very much in touch. We keep meeting and I keep coming whenever there is an event. A lot of people I know here. Some faces are new. So we can have some chat during or after the dinner and know more about each other. Thank you.
Inshallah. Thank you. Faraz bhai. Just a quick hello. You can talk about your profession.
Hi, my name is Mohammed Faraz. I moved to Canada like 7 years ago. I work in IT. I met Sean by like almost a year ago. I moved here. I used to live here like for like 10 months. So Sean is like he connected all of us. So yeah, that's how I met this organization, and I love listening to Sheikh Saab. So thank you.
Jazakallah. Actually, I just remembered thinking about my tenants. There's two more. One is over here and where's Safwan?
Assalamu alaikum all. My name is Muhammad Adil and I first came to Canada in 2022. I moved here with Sean Bhai and Mr. Fahad and we were roommates. And then I live here for almost 8 months. Then I moved to Etobicoke for my college. Now I'm living in Mississauga and I'm working there. My studies are done. So whenever there is any meeting or get together, I try to come here and spend time with these people. So that's it. Yeah.
And we try like la tafarruqu, just try to stay unified as much as we can. So yeah, Jazakallah. Then basically we're just gonna start setting up the food and we'll call you in a second. There will be a post-dinner program probably around 9. We have a representative from the NDP here who's also going to address us. We can also look into our brothers, like some of the content that he has with respect to the platforms that he was discussing. I think it's wonderful that you shared that and I appreciate your enthusiasm and I hope that we can work together in the future with respect to trying to promote that. In addition to that, I'm also going to have, for those of you who want to stay further, a surprise scholar visit us on Zoom, live from Germany. His name is Sheikh Abdul Rahman Ghori. So inshallah, we'll have a little bit of him because, again, we believe in dialogue and sharing multiple perspectives and making up our own minds. Jazakallah. Stay unified.
It was